What did I see this week? We're going to always start with the feature. I'm sure by now you've already heard both Greg and Eric talk about the movie The Convert, directed by Lee Tamahori, known probably most well from most of us, at least, for Once We're Soldiers, or Once We're Warriors, I'm sorry, forgive me, which I did review and see for the first time, I don't know, the last year, if I remember correctly. Pretty great movie about the kind of the modern experience of indigenous people in New Zealand, Maori people, and how, they've kind of lost their identity and lost their way. And it's come out in a lot of violent and unhealthy ways in this kind of modern society, or at least modern society in the late 80s, early 90s, whenever that was. The Convert is a different story. It's a little more traditional story, kind of dashing adventure slash sweeping epic of justice and injustice. It starts out essentially with Guy Pearce playing Thomas, and he is aboard a ship being taken to his new home, which is going to be as a pastor preacher in this small kind of outpost town in the beginning stages of the white development of New Zealand. So, in very many ways, and he's on a ship. In very many ways, this is a Western. Straight out of the gate, it's a Western. In fact, it has a lot of similarities to movies like Dances with Wolves. If Lee Tamahori wasn't the director, I'm sure immediately people would be aiming, white savior problems with this movie. Although, I mean, that they're there for sure. I mean, he literally is a white savior because at the beginning, the ship stops for them to get off and get some supplies to repair it, and they the main crew goes aboard, and he's kind of with the crew, so he's not a trained sailor or whatever. He has a horse he's bringing too, a white horse. So you literally see him riding his white horse to shore. This white preacher guy. He's a little rough around the edges. Preacher. He's not like a. He's devout, but he's kind of seemed like he's new to the position, like he's kind of recently converted. Is what he seems like. And very quickly he encounters some of the Maori people. They have a quick interaction. It works out okay. The sailors kind of help him navigate around that. And then there's another one very quickly where you see two different Maori groups fighting, and the one group is just massacring the other group. And being the quote white savior that he steps in at the last minute to try to save this man and woman who are about to be, executed in front of him because the Maori group that's beat the other group is obviously way more mighty than these sailors. They're not even going to try to get involved. And basically, he's given a choice. Well, here, give us your. He offers his horse, and he says, save their lives. And the warlord that's about to get them killed says, well, that's only good enough for one person. You pick. And he picks the guy to be killed. The guy is killed. The woman survives and basically becomes thrown into his care. So now this preacher suddenly has under his care a Maori woman who obviously has no wish to be under the care of some white dude. She's a warrior, and that's kind of the basic setup. So classic setup, kind of grand adventure. It's going to, of course, be all about the experience of this white person trying to understand the other side of things, the Maori side of things, as opposed to the white, colonial side of things. And as viewers, we will follow along and have his journey. In that sense, it's pretty entertaining and pretty solid. I mean, I would say the first third or half is kind of the point of view of him with this woman and how that impacts his new position as this preacher in this small outpost town in this white world within this larger not white world of New Zealand. And then it transitions to the second part being him in the Maori world of that time and how that works. And both sides are pretty interesting. And I think for those who miss those kind of classic kind of historical adventures, this will be a very solid pick. I enjoyed it as well. I think if my biggest gripe, and you kind of probably get that because of the way I've been talking about white savior and stuff, I really wish the point of view of this movie had been different, because the real star, the real focal point of this movie is the character, the woman, Rangamai, I can't say her name really well, played by Tioreore Nagaton-Meibo. I'm sure I'm massacring that name. And really, the point of view should have been hers, not his. And I imagined the whole movie, I kept imagining, like, what would this movie have looked like if we started with her? We started with her and saw, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes of her life instead of his life on the boat. We saw her life and what it was like, and then saw her go through the trees and encounter these sailors and this white preacher dude. And what would her point of view be? And what would her point of view be when all of her people get killed except for herself, and she gets taken into the quote care of this white dude? And I think it does give you a good feel for that, but it's always from the point of view of him as the focal. And I get it. Guy Pearce is a name. Guy Pearce is going to sell tickets to people, not that many these days, but the people who will go to see a movie like this are going to see Guy Pearce, going to see Lee Tamahori. They're going to be like, this, I want to check this out. For that, I think would be the only kind of big negative for me. Other than that, I think it's a pretty entertaining and pretty satisfying movie. And it, even though it hits some of the beats you'd expect, it does also have some surprises. Oh, one other big negative for me, this is a personal big negative. It has digital blood in these battles. And we have a lot of battles and fights, and there's a fair amount of violence, as you'd expect. And when they have digital blood, it always pulls me out. Two things that just don't work in movies for me digitally yet are the breath when it's cold outside is digitally always looks fake, even now. Ever since way back in the Titanic days, it always draws me out of the movie. And the digital blood even more so, because it's very easy and inexpensive to create blood effects. We've been doing it for, I don't know, 70 years, a long time. We have squibs, we have fake blood. It's not that hard. It doesn't cost that much. And it just looks more effective if it's done right. That'd be my big knock on that. Overall, I'm going to go 4 stars on this. And I think that's a pretty solid movie. This is one of those movies, if you didn't go out in the theater to watch it, checking this out on a streaming service will be really solid for sure. So I would definitely highly advise that for people. Now, if this sounds like something you're interested in, it'd probably be even higher. Now, how will Eric and Greg rate this? Because you probably already know at this point. This seems like, well, Greg really likes Westerns for sure. I think this is going to really fall into that Western category for Greg. Plus, it just has, a good solid story as well. So I'm going to say Greg goes 4.5 or 5 stars for this. I'm pretty sure that Greg will really like this movie. I'm going to say Greg goes 5 stars.
So I thought this was a very wonderful film. I'm giving it 4.5 stars.
Eric is a little harder on this because Eric could swing either way. You know you do that. You swing either way, Eric. Come on. Just come out with it. Okay. I think Eric's going to like it too. I think there's going to be enough solid storytelling here that'll draw him in. And I think it'll overpower the period piece stuff, because a lot of times he doesn't really like dry period pieces. But I don't think this is very dry. It has adventure elements and threat and story beats. So I'm gonna say he goes 4 stars.
But yeah, I think I'm right with you on 4.5.
All right. Anyway, do you guys like that when I try to figure out what they did, or is it just boring because you already know? I don't know. Of course, let me know about this at all, what you think. Okay.